Hey YouTube friends, welcome to my channel and welcome to episode 3 of the Grower's Diary. If you're new here, hi, my name is Adriana. I am a garden blogger and I garden in beautiful Transylvania, Romania, Zone 6B. If you're not new here, thanks so much for following my journey. The Grower's Diary is my ambitious project of documenting every single week of the growing season in this year in 2023, and it's gonna be a tough one because I have a blog, tinygardenhabit.com, go check it out. I have a YouTube channel, I have a garden, I have a 1-year-old baby, I have a fluffy dog, and I have a house to renovate. So my life is quite busy at the moment, but I'm gonna do my best to upload as often as I can. So this week it was pretty good, actually. It was productive, it was relaxed. Honestly, it was so relaxed that if I hadn't filmed everything I did, I would have forgotten what I did because I didn't write anything down. I told you I was gonna log how much time I spend in the garden. So this week it was about 4 to 5 hours, plus minus the filming. So about 4 to 5 hours over the course of 3 days, in which I got some sowing done, I got some perennials pruned, and I'm going to show you all that in a minute. But first, I want to take you through the tiny bit of progress that I'm starting to see in the garden. Mainly, my garlic is sprouting, and I have a bit of footage with my garlic right here. Usually by the end of March, my garlic is quite big because I usually sow it in February. But you can see that it's doing fine. And I also have the sprouted garlic. If you remember, I planted some sprouted garlic cloves and they're quite tall and doing well too. And the other thing that I'm happy about is that all the seedlings are starting to grow and sprout in the polytunnel. So I have my lettuces doing quite well. I have the kohlrabi sprouting, the kale sprouting. And yeah, so moving on to sowing and what I actually got done in the garden. I finally got my hands on some onion sets and they were almost sold out everywhere. So that was quite foolish of me and that was pretty scary. But I have them in the ground and I have some left over in here. And the reason why I go with onion sets is because I've started onions from seed before. And I actually have a video on that, on onions from seed versus onions from sets. But onions from seed, they take so long to mature and I've had mixed results. So I go with onions from sets just because they're easier, but because it's their second year, they do bolt sooner. So keep that in mind when you decide what kind of onions to sow. So this is my onion bed. I didn't do anything special to it, but process it with my trusty soil crumbler tool. And since I didn't add manure this year, I decided to add some blood meal to it. I had some left over because I wanted a little bit of that nitrogen boost to feed this hungry crop. So I think feeding them is important, I think watering them is important, and I think spacing them is important. So we'll see how they grow this year. My only fear is that I didn't sow enough because I use them in literally all my recipes. And if you're from Eastern Europe, then you probably know what I mean. The second thing that I have sown in the garden is parsnip, which is in this bed right here. Now, parsnip is interesting. I have never sown parsnip because I didn't have the room. I always have to choose what to sow and what to give up on in my garden, and parsnip was that crop that I usually gave up on. But this year I've decided I won't be sowing celery, so I will be giving parsnip a chance instead. This is because I really want a lot of root vegetables to store in my root cellar for the winter. and I know parsnip takes a long time to mature, so I put it lengthwise in this bed so that I still have room to sow peppers on the sides of parsnip. I note that parsnip is a little bit finicky when it comes to soil temperature, and I probably should have waited a little bit, but I'm just going to treat it like carrots. I'm not going to leave it to dry. This is why I put a little bit of store-bought soil on top of it, just because it has more moisture retention and I can control that more easily. And on the sides of parsnip, I decided to again sow more onion sets just to have more of them, and maybe they can help with pests and root fly and things like that. In between my garlic and my onion sets, I have this metal rod that's dividing them so I know where they are. And at this junction, I've sown a row of dill. Usually dill does better as an autumn crop, but I really love dill, so I decided to have more crops squeezed in there. Let's take you to crop number 4. And sowing number 4 was radishes. Now, finding room for radishes was a challenge. We really love radishes, so I can't wait to have them. Usually they're the first crop to mature in the garden along with spring onions. Nothing special about sowing radishes, just make sure the soil is crumbly, mark your drills, sow the seeds, cover them up, water them. So yeah, that's it. Sowing number 5 is bunching onions. So yeah, I guess I did sow some onions from seed. These are onions that are meant to be consumed as spring onions, and you can actually treat them as perennials. I have a few of them here and there in the garden, and they last for multiple years. I also have some Welsh onion, which is a true perennial, and it has spicy leaves. We only consume the leaves, not the bulbs, because I want them to keep multiplying in the garden. Yeah, so I've sown bunching onions at the end of this soon-to-be beetroot bed and at the end of this soon-to-be carrot bed. And I like to interplant and combine onions with my root crops just because I think it offers them more protection, and they're a good companion plant too. And sowing number 6 was more lettuce and more arugula and more bunching onions in this bed. Don't ask me what I was thinking. I wasn't really thinking. We have plenty of lettuce here as well as in the polytunnel. And lastly, let me take you to my raspberry bed. Now that one is a beauty. I pruned my raspberries. It took me an entire evening, and they are nice and tidy now. And because I thought it would take too long to explain everything I did, I decided to do an entire video on just raspberries. So go on and watch that. And because it was such a beautiful day and all my tasks for the week were done, I decided to go ahead and start weeding my garden paths, because we keep mulching them, but we have persistent weeds that need to be taken care of. So yeah, that's in a nutshell all I did this week in the garden. Next, I just want to talk about my plans for next week, and then I guess I'm just gonna go and have my dinner. So just in case you're curious how I know where to sow everything and where everything goes, I actually have a plan mapped out. I know, shocker, right? I did this in January. I actually love to do this over the Christmas holidays and then, map out my raised beds and see where everything goes, and then order my seeds, and then I just wait for the garden to be ready for sowing. So my plan for next week is to take care of my perennial beds. We usually get distracted by all the sowing we have to do and all the annuals we have to take care of that we forget about perennials. And I have a lot of currant bushes and gooseberries and raspberries, and they're all delicious, but they need taking care of. So I plan to prune them and thin them and weed those beds and make them look really nice. The second thing I want to do, and I actually already did, I ordered some strawberries and some seed potatoes because they're about to be planted in April. So I'm going to plant those strawberries in vertical planters because we have these weird worm-like pests. I think they're called millipodes or something. They have tiny million legs on them, and they eat into our strawberries, and they're just awful. So yeah, I'm trying to save them because we love our strawberries. And the last thing I want to do is stay on top of weeding and watering. Watering is really important if you want seeds to germinate outdoors, especially where the wind dries the soil. And I'm not very good with watering, so that will be my priority next week. And I won't be doing any sowing just because I've sown all the essentials that I don't have any more sowing in my calendar for March. If you're curious, I do have a calendar on my website, and I'll link it in the description box below. So yeah, it won't be time for sowing until April, when I'll get my potatoes in the ground and beetroot and carrots and all the good things. So that's it for week 3. Thanks so much for watching. And until next time, have a lovely gardening season. Bye.